Welcome back. Today we have an unexpected guest, a writer, the author of an article, Ken M. Middleton, who gave me, your host, permission to narrate his piece, The Science of Why You Should Quit Drinking Alcohol. If you don't have a problem with drinking now, science says you probably will in the future. From like to want to must. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he did not exist. This quote by Kevin Spacey's character in Usual Suspects, one of the best movies ever, by the way, is a perfect example of the insidious nature and complex hold that alcohol has over many. There are some of you who will read this title or hear this title and think this is BS because you know you don't have a problem. But you're still interested to know how I can say the chances are so good that you will likely have one in the future. You like alcohol. And what's wrong with that? You're able to drink as much as you desire and still show up to work and be relatively productive the next day. You aren't drinking all day or selling any household items or yourself to get more alcohol. You even stopped a few times in the past with no problem. Remember that dry January you just did this year? There's no way you have a problem. And while being able to abstain from drinking for considerable amounts of time does bode well when it compares to some of the symptoms of alcohol use disorder, the science of how alcohol affects the body and mind over time warns that if you continue to drink on a consistent basis, this control could disappear as suddenly as Kayser Soze. Let me explain the science behind why this is so dangerous. To make this clear, disclaimer, this is way more complicated than how I will explain it, but I will do my best to break it down in terms that most people can understand. Your brain has two naturally created opioid peptides that are used to keep your body in a state of equilibrium, otherwise known as homeostasis. And these are endorphins and dynorphins. Bet you never heard of the second one, right? Endorphins are released every time we experience something pleasurable, laughing at a joke, hugging a loved one, taking a swig of our favorite alcoholic beverage. The laughing and hugging create a normal amount of endorphins that spikes up from our usual balanced state of homeostasis. But we're able to naturally come back to baseline relatively quickly with no major effort or issues. Dynorphins do somewhat the opposite and are used to regulate a number of different things in the body, from pain to pleasure. In relation to pleasure, they are released to keep your body from getting overly excited and to return to a baseline of what we would consider normal, otherwise known as the safe zone. When we drink alcohol, we introduce a foreign chemical into our body that was not considered in its creation, and we all know that. This causes an unnaturally large spike of the endorphins in our body, and that throws our natural equilibrium way off. When this happens, our body is forced to release dynorphins into our brain to get us back to our safe zone. Because the brain is trying to get you back to homeostasis as quickly as possible, the amount of dynorphins the brain releases dramatically outweighs the level of endorphins created by the alcohol. This is the reason that you feel great about 20 minutes after you had your first beer, but will slowly start to feel your buzz wearing off after about an hour. Or if you push 2 beers in a half hour. And you know, to maintain that same high of endorphins, you have to get another alcoholic beverage into your system to combat the large release of dynorphins. But once you put another endorphin spike into your system, your brain will release another large dose of dynorphins to react to this. This is why you have to continually drink to keep your buzz going all night. And why, as time progresses, you have to continue to drink more and more to get the same feeling. It's the dynorphin, endorphin. Your body is just doing what it's supposed to do to keep you at a state of equilibrium and feeling safe. Most people are used to this, so no big revelation there. But however, he says, what you probably don't realize is exactly how smart your body is and teach your brain what you want it to remember. This is where the true danger of drinking lies, and why, if you drink consistently for a long enough period of time, the chances of you having a problem are almost guaranteed. There are 3 things that your body does that cause this. 1, when alcohol causes the unnatural spike of endorphins in your body, your brain likes it. It likes it a lot. And anytime your brain finds something pleasurable that makes it feel good, think that infamous Halle Berry scene in Monsters Ball, it releases dopamine in the brain. We've all heard of dopamine. Many of us would call it the feel-good drug. But what most of us don't realize is that dopamine is also the learning and memory drug. When it is released into our brain, our subconscious actually takes hold of everything related to the release of that drug and sears it into our brain as something associated with that feeling. This is actually one of the functions that helped our ancestors survive, by subconsciously making them remember subtle things about their surroundings to help differentiate between this area looks safe and this area looks dangerous. It's a real-life spidey sense. How does this relate to alcohol? Over time, our brain will not only begin to associate just alcohol with this pleasurable feeling, but also everything we do related or leading up to the drinking. That's why when you pass your favorite drinking spot, you might feel a little twinge asking, can't we just swing in for a minute and get a drink? Or when you look at a wine glass, your body might say, don't I want a glass of that? This changes your relationship from just liking alcohol to wanting it. And this leads to the second problem. At this point, our body begins to get used to our drinking and has learned from all the dopamine that has been released over time. This causes our body to not only react to certain triggers around us, but also to actually preempt triggers to create the actual need for alcohol to go after that dopamine hit. To explain this, let's go back to our dynorphin friends for a minute. If your body is used to getting alcohol every day at 5 p.m. or every Friday and Saturday for long enough, when that time comes, your body will begin to get excited because it now knows that a dopamine hit should be coming soon. This can actually cause your body to then release dynorphins in anticipation of the alcohol that's coming. This will slowly begin to reverse the cycle, because if you don't then get that usual drink at that designated time, you start to feel low or depressed, and then you actually need the alcohol to get back to baseline, to get back to homeostasis. And this, my friend, is how cravings start. But it doesn't stop there. The third and perhaps most dangerous aspect of what happens to our brain over time due to consistent alcohol consumption is how it warps our ability to actually enjoy things without it. Because the artificial endorphin spike and subsequent dopamine hit from alcohol are outside of anything that our body could experience naturally, over time it will begin to rewire our brain to actually stop being able to produce dopamine on its own. This means is that things that used to provide pleasure, having sex with your partner, eating your favorite meal, having that drink, no longer creates enough dopamine for it to have a significant effect, and your body only becomes used to the heightened, unnatural pleasure of what the bottle can provide. This is why people that are in the advanced stages of alcohol abuse are so depressed and can find very little to make them happy again. Their body has been so reprogrammed by alcohol and its homeostasis so thrown off that it almost becomes impossible to feel pleasure from natural things anymore. Therefore, the desire to drink is no longer a want, but a must. Of course, no one thinks this can happen to them or is happening to them, but this doesn't happen overnight. This is very gradual. It sneaks up on you. This happens over many years and is so imperceptible that unless you are really looking for it, you won't notice it at all. Since many individuals who are going down this path are still able to go to work every day and have some sense of success in their career, there appears to be no cause for alarm at first. But these are the functional subtypes of alcoholism. They make up about 20%. This 20% doesn't develop a problem until somewhere in the 16th to 23rd year of drinking. The average age this group starts drinking is 19. And their average dependence starts around 37 years old. This is why when some people decide to slow down in their mid to later life years, they find it more difficult than what they would have thought.